Hello everyone and welcome back to another wonderful episode of your weekly PlayStation podcast Talking the PS, where we round up all of the juicy PlayStation news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/Helix Plays Games, or up there in the digital clouds on your podcast preference of choice. You're joining myself, Chris, alongside my two festive co-hosts, the returning man of many pixels, Mr. Richie. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
And below him, below us, in fact, always below us, is my returning chaotic neutral, Rob. Welcome back. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too.
And of course, I say Merry Christmas because we're recording these ahead of Christmas. They go live. This one actually goes live on Boxing Day. No, it doesn't. This goes live on the day after
27th.
Boxing Day, 27th. So I hope you all had a Merry Christmas out there, viewers and listeners. Thank you very much for tuning in. We hope you had a wonderful time with your loved ones, friends and family, and you had some merriment in your life. And that's what we're here for today, to bring you more merriment. We've got a great show lined up talking about the brand new Horizon spin-off games that have been confirmed, DualSense Edge First Impressions, your January PlayStation Plus games leak just ahead of the Christmas period, and our favourite PlayStation games of the last 12 months. We'll break that all down, discuss it, but before we do all that, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell so you're kept in the loop with all of the great content we do here at Helix Plays Games, such as our live streams, our weekly Let's Plays, our Xbox podcast, our PlayStation podcast, and of course, CloudQuest, to say the least. But before we get into it all, we also have my first look. Actually, I say first look. It's not my first look. I've played this game like 70 times now.
Look.
My definitive playthrough of The Last of Us Part 1 is up on the channel now. The first two live streams are there. I might pre-record something to go live later on today because it has traditionally been a Tuesday, but we're all going out and getting drunk, so you probably won't see it. But there may be something up on the channel. We also, this past week, checked out Star Wars Battlefront 2. We went to a galaxy far, far away and checked out an older title, but we had a great time, Richie. Any particular highlights from this past Thursday's stream for you, aside from my internet shitting the bed once again?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I've always stood by that the gameplay in Battlefront is great. There's a few elements I'm not fond of. I'm not going to go into detail on that. I don't hate it. Actually, Ewok Hunt is great fun. Ewok Hunt is genuinely great fun. It's a bit of a shame that the star battle when you in the spaceships and stuff was kind of seemed like a dead mode nowadays.
Yeah, they didn't fill out with any AI really. But overall,
yeah, I think it's still. I mean, we were saying during the stream that we want a Battlefront 3 of some description.
Yeah, absolutely in depth, and hopefully we'll get some kind of announcements later on next year. We kind of just played for about 2 or so hours, but our general consensus was we love Star Wars and the gameplay is fun. It's just the game is like 5+ year old now, so no surprise it was difficult to find matchmaking and stuff. But we were both very firmly under the impression that this game should be almost like a free-to-play battle royale kind of scenario.
Yeah,
where
well, maybe not battle royale. You just make the game free to play, and you have the game run the entire length of a console generation, and constantly add season passes, the kind of stuff you would get in your kind of Call of Duty Warzones, your Fortnites and stuff to keep it going, because the gameplay is solid.
Yeah, absolutely. We said many times, like we do on the show quite often, that kind of synergy across multimedia, where if there was a Battlefront free-to-play game, every time a new Mandalorian show comes out, every time an Ahsoka show comes out, every time the Clone Wars launches, you just add season pass skins and promotions and new level packs and such, and it's ripe for the picking, Disney. What are you doing? But we've got a busy show lined up, a very fun show, as I mentioned. Before we get into it all, Rob, in your absence from last week, what have you been playing? Have you been able to pull yourself away from work finally for the festive season and knuckle down and play some games?
Like, a little bit, not as much as I want to. I'm still kind of working my way through Shadow of War, which is kind of going well. Like, there's lots of stuff in that game I completely forgot existed, which is kind of nice to go back again.
The orcs, the men, and the elves.
Yeah, mainly that. It's some other things, but so I've been enjoying that. But more importantly than what I've been playing, is the gift I have organised for you two, because I know for a while. See, I see the confused look on your face for audio listeners, and this is going to get way more confusing for audio listeners. Okay, but I've got blue.
He's done it.
I've committed to the red, green, blue. So
that, you know how
that's what I've been
looking at this from my as the host who records this and captures this. Looking at my screen right now, that makes me so happy. That
I knew it would.
It just
I knew
looks
this
absolutely perfect.
I knew my white background would have been annoying you for like months now. So
RGB for everyone. Merry Christmas. That's awesome. That's better than any game.
Yeah.
Although when you did say I'm playing The Gift, that's what I interpreted that as, and I was like, The Gift. What was that? Is that like
what was the game? Yeah,
The Quarry?
That's
When did that come out? It sounds like a game, like a random indie title you would get.
Is that some RTS from like the 1990s?
The
which
Gift
is my standard form.
That's awesome.
I was really lucky actually. I had to turn my camera off before we started recording so I could switch over from green to blue to make sure that the surprise worked, because it would have been a massive dud if I just went green now.
It would, yeah. We don't the colour green on this show, but there's a surprise then for everybody. Now the problem you've got here, Rob, is we record XPass after this one. Is the reveal in XPass, which goes live on the day before the show, going to ruin this surprise?
Probably, yes, actually. Yeah.
Not for us.
That's again.
Well, it will.
The true moment was captured here on this show.
Yeah. Exactly.
The best PlayStation podcast here on Helix Plays Games. But yes, so not much video gaming. How about yourself, Richie? What have you been chipping away at now you've began your festive break?
I roll credits on God of War finally.
Woohoo!
And I've got some cleanup to do, but I kind of roll credits on God of War, put it down, then I've spent the last 2 nights playing Pokemon again. But I think like now I've broken up from work, I think I'll probably play, like I want to platinum God of War over Christmas.
It's not too. I think once you get to the end of the story, it's not too far beyond what you've already done. How many hours did you clock in at the end to get to the end of the story?
I think I'm around about 40-ish, maybe 45. I didn't look.
Yeah, you've probably only got about, depending on how many collectibles you've done throughout, I'd say you've probably got about 5 or so more to do proper cleanup.
I've done quite a lot. I've got some of the harder fights to do still. So like some of like the Berserker challenges and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
there was only one or two that really caught me out. Specifically the kind of the big boss at the end, which you might not even know about, but there's a trophy specifically tied to fighting this boss.
Is it the Valkyrie Queen?
I mean, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah, it's the Valkyrie. It's the Valkyrie.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. I've looked at the trophy list since.
Right. It's like when you find her, like she killed me a good like 15 to 20 times before I got into like a rhythm of her moveset and stuff. So
yeah,
interesting, but worth it in the end. Terrific. Then, final thoughts on Ragnarok?
It's phenomenal. Like, really is. It's a fantastic game.
Beautiful, and it'll definitely be in our Game of the Year discussion, no doubt. And
I know that there's, like, they said this is, like, always intended to be 2 games, but I feel like there's a third game. Like, immediately after roll credits, my brain went to where could the story go, and I pretty much wrote a story, like, in my own head, like, there's enough content of where that game could go that they could continue the Norse saga a bit further.
Well, before we get into the news then, is there anything in particular... with obviously spoiler free, would you like to see DLC for this game? Because we've said before, Horizon, we confirmed on last week's show, Burning Shores is coming. We know other exclusives have got it, Spider-Man and Miles Morales and such. Would you want to see DLC for this game, or would you quite happily wait another 4 to 5 years for another entry completely?
I'd rather wait, because I think if you're going to bring in DLC, I don't think it's a game where you want to bring in DLC to just expand on concepts of the story. I think there's where the game leaves off with like where the key characters are at that point is I think there's enough in there to warrant its own game to kind of really have one more thing to just close off some of the loose threads that are still open.
Right.
And especially with like Kratos, where he currently is in his life at the point where you leave him off. And you know the reveal right at the end where you look at the shrine. Like, I want to see him get to that point.
Okay.
So I was like, I don't think DLC would really do it justice. I think it does need one more go to finish off the trilogy.
Yeah, I would kind of like them to go back to some of the Greek stuff again, like go full circle, because I only really know God of War from the 2018 remaster. Like I've dabbled in the older ones, but I always thought they're just like hack and slash beat 'em up stuff, and I never really played them beyond like an hour or so here and there. But these two, this duology, I've absolutely adored through and through. The characters, the world, the gameplay, everything absolutely amazing. So for them to go full circle and maybe reintroduce the Greek element of it a bit more, I think would be a nice kind of round off of Kratos' complete story, because obviously throughout the other two games he does reference them, and spoilers and stuff, the weapons he uses and things all kind of refer to the original games, but without that context I'm just like, oh, that's cool, but I feel like it would land a lot more if they went full circle and kind of retrace the steps a little bit. But depends what the creators want to do.
I think we need to sit down over Christmas and actually record a good spoiler cast where we just have like an hour or something to just gush about these games and where we think it could go.
Absolutely. And then
because it's quite difficult to kind of like convey the stuff that I've got in my head in a spoiler-free fashion right now.
Absolutely. So. And we don't want to ruin things for Rob as well. So I'm thinking I haven't got my PS5 yet.
This is my Christmas game. So
keep it away.
Shut up.
Did you play 2018?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So you're literally waiting for this PS5 then.
Yeah, I think I will actually replay that because I played it on PlayStation Plus, and it probably wasn't the best way to experience it, I don't think.
No.
With the way kind of the streaming is.
Absolutely. Wonderful. What have I been playing? I've been chipping away a little bit at The Witcher. I've not managed to get that much gaming done this week because I've been wrapping up on work and literally wrapping up, Christmas, obviously getting stuff sorted, seeing family, gift exchanges, all those sort of things before next week, or this week for viewers and listeners, gets a bit hectic. I've played a little bit more. I've done the whole botchling mission thing now. I do have actually a quick question because, as I said, when you kind of get out to the open world, I've done lots of the Bloody Barons mission, and now it just basically says go find his wife, but it doesn't give me any marker on the map, and I'm thinking, like, is this where I have to genuinely go and follow clues to find it, or am I just being dumb and missing something? Because everything up to this point is when, like, go to this town, go to this building, there is the person, speak to them, and I've done all of those, like, checkpoint A to Z missions, and now it just says go find the Baron's wife, but there's no, like, location marker to go to, and all I know is there was a horse that was beheaded, she was dragged off into the woods by some big creature. So I'm like looking around where the dead horse was in the woods, and I'm like,
there might be some monster hunt. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Do I need to go like look at checkpoints and kind of source other information from randomers to kind of funnel me towards that?
It's really hard because I can't actually remember because like the Baron's quest line is the main quest line, isn't it?
Part of it is. I think part of it isn't. I think the bits you're up to might not be any longer part of the main quest. Well, yeah,
I've done the stuff with his daughter, and now like I've found her, and he's kind of pacified with that. But then when I went back to him, he's like, "Oh, have you found my wife yet?" And I'm like, "I'm on it." But like you said, I'm able to move on to Oxenfurt now.
Yeah, I think it might be something as comes more apparent as you progress through the story a bit more.
Okay, because I haven't really been doing like any of the check, like the notice boards in the villages and stuff.
Like
I've just kind of been mainline it to make the most of my time as it stands. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. Still getting my head around some of the mechanics. My inventory's just full of so much shit that I've not used once to craft or anything with. Roach is still annoying as hell. Horses in video games, my word, Richie. It's on like it's a tier just above fishing in video games for me. He just that's I know rough. It's the next gen update, but my word, Roach, just like every little bump in the ground is like, oh, can't do that, can't go over there.
Is it as bad as Valhalla? Because it's been a while since I've played, and I don't remember it being that bad. And Valhalla, a slight incline, you couldn't.
Valhalla,
your horse was
horse slowed down to a walk whenever there was like a 2-degree incline. Yeah. Whereas Roach just seems to get stuck on like every little bush and shrub and tree. And when then
randomly he'll jump off a cliff as well.
I've not had that yet.
Or appear on top of a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know that's like a joke in the game, and we've seen that. And obviously even in Cyberpunk 2077, I think in one of the opening scenes, there's a arcade machine game with Roach in, and you can jump the horse over houses like Pac-Man arcade style, which I think is really funny. But I'm enjoying it again. I've not had much time to put into it. This is my Christmas game, and probably well into January, February, March by the sounds of it. But I'm enjoying it so far. Enjoying the banter back and forward between all the characters and stuff, and again, like settling into that world. So, and I know there's lots of our viewers and listeners who've gone back and checked it out as well. So, good times. Right then, gents, before we do get into everything, we just want to do a special thank out to all of our Helix heroes who supported us throughout the entirety of 2022 and beyond. We couldn't do this without you. Over 50 of you awesome folks over there support the channel that extra little bit more, just like you can by clicking join down below on the YouTube video. That takes you to the Helix Hero page, where from as little as 99p, you get special early access to some of our shows, perks and badges like stickers next to your name in the chat, and a bunch of other stuff as well. And we do have plans for that in the new year, so keep it locked, keep it tuned. But thank you very much for your support. It does definitely put a smile on our face, and it helps us reinvest in the content here on the channel and fund Rob's RGB lighting to some degree.
Oh, really? Should I invoice you guys?
I mean, it depends on how much you spent on these RGB lights, because you can get some cheap ones off Amazon, but you can also, it's actually shockingly embarrassing how, like, if you get something that's got Elgato branding on it, for the exact same, like just a ring light, but if it's an Elgato ring light, it's like £99. It's like, no, it's just a little...
You have to... I think with stuff like Elgato, you've got to pick your battles. Some of the Elgato stuff is worth the money. Other stuff isn't.
Yeah.
So you kind of just got to like go, well, is it worth... I think things like the capture cards and microphones, like the cameras, like...
The complicated
that sort of stuff. The Streamlights are probably better than what we're using, but are they that much better in terms of the money? So
yeah, like I think my little ring light that I've got here probably paid like £18 for it, something like that. It's got like the nice warm, it's got the warm light, the pure white light, and you can adjust the brightness. That's all I need. But the Elgato ones with the standard like £99, or if not more, and it's a bit crazy. But either way, we digress. Thank you, Helix Heroes. You're all awesome out there. Thank you for your support. But let's get into the thick of it. So, Rob, upon your return, would you please introduce us to the
properly prepared PlayStation perusing points, aka the news.
The news.
Quite a short week in PlayStation this week. No surprise. Probably everybody over at Sony HQ is on holiday. So we're here to round up what news we do have. And now, traditionally, we would do the show. We would record multiple shows back to back over Christmas. So this recording would actually be out of sync with the news, and we just kind of make it up as we go. No, we don't make it up as we go along. We just kind of talk generically about PlayStation, and we take the week off. But the way Christmas has landed this year on a weekend, it actually doesn't impact our scheduling that much. So we do actually have some news, starting off with story number 1 of the week, which is Horizon, the franchise, Forbidden West, Zero Dawn, which is quite interesting when you just say Horizon on its own, because Microsoft and Xbox have Horizon Motorsport. Horizon, it's odd that two franchises, both like intrinsically tied to gaming, and they've picked Horizon for the two of them. Obviously, Guerrilla's game is the newer of the two and has nothing to do with racing cars, giant robot dinosaurs in the post-apocalyptic future and such. But it's interesting, and story number 1 brings us to confirmation that Guerrilla Games are in fact working on an online project spin-off, which will be in a co-op stylized look. So reading from Eurogamer, reports have emerged as early as 2020, but we've had some claims confirmed, and they're looking to implement features across the Horizon Zero Dawn world that tie in with Sony's ongoing project for Games as a Live service. And up on their website now, they're actually recruiting for people to focus on cooperative gameplay with an online style project separate from the mainline games in the Horizon universe. This will feature a new cast of characters and a unique stylized look, allowing friends to explore majestic wilds of Horizon together. And I just wanted to throw it over to you guys and want to spitball a little bit on what we'd like to see out of it, because I think a Horizon multiplayer game sounds fantastic, like us three jumping on and hunting robot dinosaurs together with all various layouts and abilities ourselves in maybe a new part of the world, because obviously this is focused in the US. If they did this in like kind of Europe maybe, or Africa or somewhere different, I think it would be a great time. So Rob, I'll throw it over to you first then. First of all, what's your brief history with Horizon, and what would you expect out of a co-op game from them?
So I haven't got massively into the franchise. It's always something I've followed, and a game I've meant. It's always been on the list, so to speak. But like online kind of co-op based, like I'm all for those types of games because it just kind of lends into the social way I like to play games. Kind of with you guys and stuff like that. The stylized graphics is an interesting one for me. I'm not sure what they actually mean for that, because I feel like a lot of the time stylized graphics means Fortnite. Don't expect too much in terms of effort and realism.
My brain first goes to.
Yeah, so
Fortnite or Breath of the Wild, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so like
reduce detail and texture to save on money, essentially.
Yeah,
money and time.
There's part of me which is like, if it could be great, but if they're using if they're approaching it like this now, it could be like a bit of a phone-in cash grabby job. I'm not really sure on that, but if it's going to be online, I guess they'll need to like cater for a bigger audience. I'm guessing as well, including like kind of low-end PCs and potentially mobile and stuff like that. So that might be a consideration. Don't really know, but
yeah,
cautiously optimistic, I would say.
That's an interesting point when you say about that, because we've seen Call of Duty with Call of Duty Mobile and Fortnite with Fortnite Mobile, and they're trying to get that. Is this essentially IP in as many hands as possible beyond, no doubt, PlayStation? And we know Sony are working on mobile projects. They've acquired a couple of mobile studios in the last year or so. We know they're branching out into like kind of movies and television now, so they're looking for that cross multimedia synergy. And yeah, I think you're right. A downskilled, stylized version of this game would allow that. I always get the vibe that they're trying to build on the back of like the Monster Hunter success that we've seen with Monster Hunter World. I think was it Capcom? It's like their most successful game ever. I don't quite understand it, but it kind of fits the mold perfectly. Giant monsters, hunting, multiplayer online. Like it just seems like an absolute win. What are your thoughts?
I'm kind of glad you like pitched Monster Hunter there, because I was thinking like for me, Horizon's more of a story-driven content where you want to get lost in that world and what's the characters and what's the narrative and stuff, and that for me just doesn't really work great with co-op, because I find when I'm playing a game co-op, you're spending more time just hanging out with your mate or your brother or whoever you're playing with, and you're not paying that much attention. You're not fully immersed in what's going on in the world. Yeah. Where I think something like Monster Hunter, the strength of it is more in the gameplay rather than... It's more lore-driven rather than story-driven. So I think a co-op Horizon game that is kind of a Monster Hunter-style game could work really well, because then when you're on comms, you're chatting with your mate and you're hunting down this monster, it's not about the story of what's unfolding around you. It's about you as a team hunting this thing, and I think that could work really well.
Yeah, that's the kind of like the ideal. When they say multiplayer online, that's my immediate go-to thing. Is like us three.
You don't want the story to be the main focus. You want the gameplay. For me, has to take focus on multiplayer.
Absolutely, we're out in the world. We're talking about just like normal day shit, like what we've been up to, what we're doing. While we're like maybe collecting ingredients and collecting like just gear and loot around in the world, and then all of a sudden something pings up and says there's a pack of. What are the Velociraptor ones called again? Like Watchers or something like that? There's just a pack of them X amount of miles to the south, and then we need components from them. So all of a sudden it's like, right, Rob, you flank them from this side on your horseback thing. Me and Rich are in some kind of big mammoth creature maybe. And then we hunt them down, and then somehow... I'm picturing like Jurassic Park Lost World, when they're hunting down all of the...
Imagine the Thunderjaw. We're going up... The three of us going up against a Thunderjaw, like us talking on comms, like one of us, like I'll lure them. You get on the heavy. You get on like the heavy gun. That Chris, you knock the gun off. Rob, you pick up the gun. I'll lure them away. Like we're working as a team to take it down.
Take his legs, set some traps, like all that kind of like communication.
You're making us seem way more competent at games than we actually are. Games and teamwork. That sounds like a The
reality is, oh my god, he's got Richie. He's got Richie.
For me,
now our boat sank again.
Yeah, but for me, if you're going to do a co-op game, it should be about the teamwork. The teamwork should be a critical component of the gameplay. This is what I did. One of the things I always go to Marvel's Avengers, where I always just felt that you were all just in the world together, but there was no real synergy between characters.
Yeah,
there's like you were just off doing your own thing, and you may just happen to be in the same world.
Yeah.
For me, if you're going to do a game that is co-op, you want like that synergy between the characters. Maybe you have a slightly class based. So rather than like with Aloy has the full arsenal of stuff, maybe you get you limited in what like weapons you can take. With different builds, you can only maybe carry 2 weapons, a bow and 1 other item or something.
Yeah, I think that would
kind
be
of like so you're forced to kind of work together.
Yeah. I think classes would work because again, the arsenal that they have in Horizon, there is kind of you can picture there's the heavy, there's the assault, there's the long range. You do
there's
get that.
Like the trapper is just going to use like the traps and stuff, and like the roadcasters and stuff.
Whereas Aloy is like a jack of all trades when it comes to it. It would be quite smart for someone to like have just different traits that you apply your points and your skills into. So then when you come together as a collective, you can work in tandem to take like these big creatures down. And yeah, I don't know whether you'd have some kind of home hub maybe that you're all like a fortress base you'd all go back to, or a cave or a tree house or something, because the world is so diverse. There's so much opportunity. I think very much again akin to Monster Hunter, where you can pretty much just do anything. Monster of the week, creature of the week, new breeds, new variants. It lends itself very, very well to that. I do like the fact that they're going with new characters, because I don't think Aloy should be involved in this at all. I think it should just be a case of she's maybe revered.
Cameo Max.
Yeah, she's like revered as the hero that everyone maybe talks about, and you find maybe notes around the world that reference her, but she doesn't need to be in this at all.
I would like them to just go to a different part of the world. Just entirely, because then you have a justifiable reason why someone like Aloy and like the cast of characters you know from the Horizon games don't turn up. If you are, as you mentioned, Chris, you're set in Africa or set in Asia or set in Europe, like, or Australia, you're just set in a completely different part of the world. So it makes sense that you wouldn't encounter these characters. So you could tell whatever story you want completely separate from the main Horizon game.
Absolutely. So to kind of pull this full circle then, would you guys go free to play with this to really capture that audience? Or would you still charge? Because again, at Sony's current rate is, according to them, every one of their exclusives are going £69.99, £70, $70. With them getting to this. Plus. Okay, Rob?
Stick it in PlayStation Plus, and then, because you want, with it being multiplayer, you want enough people to get their hands on it. Where if you're going at $70 for a co-op game, I'm going to probably not go for that, because I'm probably not going to play for the whole thing. I'm not going to get enough out of it. But if it's on PlayStation Plus, then I absolutely will be playing.
I'm thinking free to play, personally. Just going back to your comment, Chris, on trying to get the franchise in front of as many people as possible. I think it's like the Netflix thing kind of feeds into that. This could feed into it, and then ultimately the sell more of like the kind of single player titles off the back of it. As Richie said, I don't think I'd pay kind of full PlayStation price for a game like this.
I
especially if the community kind of dies off in X amount of months, then it's
it's a risk reward, isn't it? You go free to play, you hit that bottom line, which could bring in millions. And I think at the end of the day, if the game is good, it'll stand its own. But it's getting people over a £70 price point. But then if you want that mobile variation, how much is the mobile version of the game? What, $1.99, $2.99? Because you're not going to buy the game on mobile for that. So if they're looking for that synergy, I think free to play just covers all platforms, all bases, and they get to play loads. And let's face it, Richie, especially we've played this game loads, there is a shit ton of customization options in the game already. So for skins, cosmetic packs, boosters, like weapon upgrades, there's more than enough for the devs to play with to monetize some elements of this.
I wonder if part of the idea behind doing it more stylized in terms of the graphics lends itself easier to create more cosmetic stuff.
Because if you don't look as outplaced, will it? I guess.
Yeah, you don't have to go to the same level of detail as you do for like Aloy's stuff, because while the game still looks good, it doesn't have that level of detail to it. Like,
great point.
I think that's the advantage of Fortnite, why they can do so much crossover stuff, because it's quite a simplistic art style. It's kind of like cell shaded block color stuff. Yeah, you don't have to go into granular detail.
Yeah, as long as they're close enough, you kind of get a win for that one. But we'll probably have to wait quite a long time for this to see the light of day. We know PlayStation are working on like 10 plus games, I think, for the next year and beyond to do with games as a service. Fans of Horizon, though, they don't have to wait too long. The studio has since confirmed they are looking at another epic solo adventure for Aloy, which I think we all knew there was going to be, especially Richie, we finished the Forbidden West. There's definitely a third entry in this series. Like the way it ends the story is, it's on the pipeline. We've also got the online outings, which they've mentioned, which are apparently going to be done by a separate external project. Don't know what that looks like yet. There's an MMO which they've confirmed is being developed in partnership with NCSoft, who do Guild Wars. So we don't know what that is going to look like yet either. And we've got the PSVR 2 launch title, Call of the Mountain, coming next year. And as Rob alluded to just moments ago, the Netflix live action series as well. So if you're a fan of Horizon, you're about to get a lot of it over the next 5 to 6 years. So buckle in and we'll get there eventually. Moving on to story number 2, one of the things we will also be getting in the near future is the DualSense Edge controller. Sony's adaptation, their version of the Pro controller, Elite controller for Xbox Elite controller, V2, whatever it's referred to nowadays. They announced it earlier on the year. We broke it down on another episode of this very show. But journalists out there, tech enthusiasts, influencers have been getting early hands-on impressions over at Sony HQ about the controller, and it's actually getting rave reviews. Aside from the battery life, which I've seen some headlines lean too heavily into and say it performs worse than the original controller, and my retort to that is, because it does a shit ton more. So naturally, it's the same size as the other controllers, so they haven't got any more room to put in a bigger battery. So no surprise with all its extra triggers and bells and whistles it's going to. But in terms of the early reviews, they've highlighted stuff, and essentially it looks like it's going to do everything that you want it to do. In terms of the controller, some of the highlights for me that I've picked out is if you go into the settings, you can really, really customize it to like such a granular level. you can essentially have multiple default layouts. So if you're playing Apex Legends 1 minute and you've got your trigger set up and your guns mapped to certain buttons, that's no problem. Then if you go back to a single player game, you can essentially have up to 4 or 5 default variant loadouts saved in your PlayStation to go back to and play as, which I think is a nice little, like, back and forth if you're doing multiple game types. One of the things I thought was quite in depth is on the back of it, there's like a little flick switch that has 3 different settings, so you can actually, if you're like playing a shooter game, you don't want to pull the trigger in fully to fire off a round because that wastes probably 0.123 of a millisecond. You can set it so if you pull in the trigger by 20%, it'll register the shot at 20% of the trigger being compressed in. But then you can go into the settings and actually reduce that even more from a digital standpoint. So you've got the physical lock on the back of the controller, and then you can have it to react to maybe like 10% of the tiny squeeze. So essentially you can map this out however you want. You can have it as sensitive as all hell, or you can have it a bit more. So again, it's just tightening those screws and all the little details. And one of the finer points I do like is the texturized things. So they've actually added rubber grips to the back of the controller. So, you know, I think previously everything was just patterned all over with the sacred symbols. Now it's actually rubberized on the back. So if you are playing, you've got those sweaty palms out there, you've got the extra bit of quality. Anything in particular for you two, Jen, stand out from the Elite? I know none of us are looking at buying this. Rob's just splashed all his budget on RGB lights. I have no interest in this because I don't have the muscle memory to even learn more buttons than what I'm used to now.
I think there's one feature I think they've done on this that should be on every single controller ever, and that is easily swappable joysticks. Because joysticks wear down. Mm-hmm. And so they're one of the only things in the controller that you ever realistically want to replace. Think of like Joy-Con drift and the Nintendo Joy-Cons. Mm-hmm. So I just think that should just be standard on controllers going forward. That if your joystick breaks, you can just pop it out, pop a new one in, like easily, like not have to ship it off to like Sony to like get it fixed. That you could just order the replacement part, pop it out. Wait, maybe I know this is toolless. I don't think it necessarily needs to be toolless, but maybe 1 or 2 screws, you pop the module off, stick the new one in, fasten the screws, and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's also an easy fix for stick drift. I'm sure Nintendo with their Joy-Cons.
Yeah, that's it. If your sticks like break or just wear down, like you should just be able to just 1 or 2 screws, pop it out, put the new module in, screw it back in, and you're good to go. That should be all it takes.
And it's $20 for replacement stick modules as well. So again, you can just readily go get them from your local game shop or Walmart or wherever you would normally pick the stuff up at. Because I think actually this week I read Nintendo were actually being sued for the Joy-Con drift because they've actually admitted that it was a manufacturer's default problem, but they've pretty much just blatantly ignored the problem for the last 5 years nearly.
They've done like free repairs, like of it. I think even that extended beyond warranty. It's a weird thing to sue for because like. I mean, you buy a thing, you take your chance with it in some way. I think they should have improved it.
Yeah, I think because it was so common, I think it got beyond like, oh, this is genuinely like they should have done a recall, is I think what they're getting at. But it's a bit difficult with the Switch because the Joy-Cons were part of the console purchase. So do you reach out to your customers and say send the whole unit back?
The worst thing they did was actually with the Switch Lite because they're not even detachable.
It's just part and parcel.
Which I always thought was stupid because, like, for me, if I'm Nintendo, when it comes to the Switch, the whole concept is this dual hybrid thing where you can put it in the dock or take it off, where the Switch Lite doesn't fit the standard docks. Is like that would be like design point A is like any iteration has to fit the current dock.
Yeah,
it has to have removable Joy-Cons, even if the Joy-Cons are more simplistic. They should still be removable, and then you should be able to take your current Joy-Cons and put it on your Lite. They should have that synergy between like the different like iterations of the console, but that's just Nintendo shit.
Yeah, that is Nintendo shit. One of the things that does also come with is a nice little Sony branded carry case, which are like a braided USB-C cable, which is about just short of 3 meters long, so you got a decent bit of length in that. And what I did like is apparently when it plugs in the back of the controller, there's the option to lock in the cable. So if someone accidentally like walks across and catches it, or for whatever reason you pull it,
so you can if someone trips on the cable, you can launch your console.
Essentially, yeah, or launch the controller, one of the two. But I guess if people are really this important in terms of like their latency and stuff with the trigger shooting the timings, they're probably playing wired. I think that's where the angle of kind of came from with this. Just like anything to reduce latency, cable, right. You're going to be sat with it plugged in anywhere. Still got all the same traditional features. Like I said, battery life seems to be one of the things that they've highlighted as still a bit of a problem. But I don't know about you. I mean, I don't play often enough to really experience battery life. Like in some long playthroughs, my controller does pop up saying battery running low, but then I tend to find even when I get that message, I still have like another hour or so beyond the warning message.
And another controller.
And another controller to rotate out, yeah. But I guess no one's really out there with the budget to buy 2 of these things.
And I think if you're like hardcore esports, you're probably on a dedicated monitor, probably sat like PC distance away from the monitor. Your PlayStation's on your desk in front of you, so you could just plug in.
Yeah.
So I think battery life can be important. I do notice my battery life with my first ever DualShock 4. Mm-hmm. But that's like, like 8-year-old or something. Like, so again, I've had once in a while battery life, if a long extended, like we're talking 5-6 hours of gaming, and you'll get a notification go, all right, I put this one down and I'll pick up my other controller and then I will just continue.
Absolutely. Again, it's something that's going to be said, but it's a portable piece of tech, so it's going to always have battery issues eventually. Rob, any final points for you on the controller? That again, unless you suddenly
I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I've only been listening to about half of this conversation for the past 5 minutes. And the reason being, I did not know that the texture on the back of current controller. No, I've just been looking at my controller and the camera going like this, looking at. I did not know that was a thing.
It's cool,
It's
right?
a lot harder. It's really cool. It's a lot harder to pick up on the black controller.
Was
which
that
is probably why I didn't notice.
Is that
Am I the
because
only
you saw
person who
the, like
didn't know
on
about
the
this?
photo? Yeah, I think so. Is that because you saw the
cool.
photos on the Verge article we've been looking at, and then you saw like all the little details, like on the triggers, it's got like the sacred symbols, on the the touchpad's got the sacred symbols. Did you just go, I'm going to look at mine? It's like,
no. What happened is it said like there's a line on this story because like the thing I like most about this controller is like the better grip on the like the textures, and I think that's like a really underrated thing to actually just give you a bit more kind of pliability or whatever. But then I read the line where it's like, oh, it's covered in 40,000 tiny PlayStation symbols. Like, oh, that's pretty cool for like a special edition. And I read closer and I was like, no,
not a special edition thing.
Wait. And then like, yeah.
So that was like a proper revelation moment for you.
Yeah, like,
that's
wow.
Awesome. Wait till I tell you about these Pokemon potions, Rob. For years, I thought they looked like an actual potion. That's going to blow your mind when you learn that.
Fuck you guys. It's like...
But yeah, that is one of those great details. Again, it's such a good way of like, it's smart branding, but at the same time, it is cool. It is really, really cool. If when you get your PS5 and you play Astrobot, which comes kind of built in with the console, the same thing goes for that. When you're in the Astrobot world, it just seems like, oh, there's all these colourful little biomes to explore. Well, when you go into them, you'll notice these like little triangles, little squares, like all over the place, and it's such subtle ways to do it. There's like, I think in Astrobot, Richie, there's some levels where like the plants, like the leaves on the plants are actually like triangles and squares, and it's like, it's so cute, but it's such a clever kind of subconscious way of marketing it. And
Astrobot is probably the most PlayStation-y game you could ever get.
Absolutely. Although I do say the symbols on the touchpad, I do think looks cool as hell on the Edge controller. Just adds that. They almost look like hieroglyphics, don't they, on that photo that they've got on there. But yeah, super cool. I do like the look of the Edge. I don't think it looks that different from the DualSense to make me go like, whoa, like visually I need to get that. But hopefully this does point us in the way of like more customization in the future, and it's not just limited to the Edge. Like we've said time and time again on this show, give us more colors, give us a little bit more customization, and just don't gatekeep it behind like a $200 thing, because I think we joke when NFS was announced. It costs almost half the price of the console. And the console comes with a DualSense controller, so like, what are you doing?
Either you need more money than sense, or you need to be hardcore into like esports or something where to get the benefit.
Absolutely, more money than DualSense.
As like a final point, I do wish they'd give us more options for like, because this is clearly aimed at like kind of first-person shooter type titles. Yeah, it would be nice like if there's like consideration for the game types, like kind of like a toggle run buttons or stuff like that, which is like kind of more suited for the games and stuff like
Going
that.
Going back to the old Sega Mega Drive like turbo buttons and stuff.
Yeah, right, and stuff like that. So I'd like to see more of that in the future, but
fingers crossed. I mean, it's good that at least they've got R&D clearly working on different peripherals.
They should just make everything they possibly can for the Edge just fully customizable in software.
I guess the more they add on, the more valuable the Edge becomes as a commodity, because you can just do more and more with it, like add-ons and attachments and stuff like that.
You could do things in potentially in firmware where if you use one of the paddles and press X, it does like a double tap or something.
Yeah.
Like you could use it as like kind of to bring in more accessibility features for people.
Yeah, because on the DualSense, as it stands, the front faceplate here, the black one on the original one, that does pop off and you can change it, but they don't really like market it as like you can't buy color faceplate set. But if you have like the pink controller and this one, you can interchange them by just getting your nails in and popping it off. But it's like it's very minimal at best. So plenty of work still to be done.
Design labs.
Oh, we know that.
Let me customize.
Design labs. Maybe in 2023, Richie, when we get our new slew of PlayStation Plus games. Next story of the week. It is still a rumor, I just want to point out, but usually the website these come from, Deal Labs, they've pretty much nailed on the PlayStation Plus games ahead of time for the last several years, so they're pretty confident in their sources. They've done it again. This time they've leaked our January games, which probably will be confirmed on the 28th of the month. If you look at the Sony calendar when they usually announce them officially, it's usually a handful of days before they go on the actual platform to claim yourselves. This month for January, next month for January, I should say, 3 titles. Starting things off, a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, in the run-up to Jedi Survivor, coming this March, is going to be your PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 title to claim. Needs no introductions. Respawn's amazing action-adventure game that brings us Cal Kestis and his team of misfits as he goes and learns to be a Jedi Master. I don't really think we need to spend much time talking about Jedi Fallen Order. It's phenomenal. If you're a Star Wars fan, you'll thoroughly enjoy it. It's all canon, in line with the movies and Disney Plus shows. And
we play it every year.
We do play it every year on May the 4th. We jump in. Although we have to figure that out this year, because my Stadia save, which we traditionally would do it on, will be gone. It'll be gone by then. It will be gone like Alderaan. And we'll have to figure that one out. But we'll play some. We might go back to Battlefront 2. Anything on Star Wars there. We could do Lego Star Wars if it's still on Game Pass. Plenty of stuff we could play. We've all played this game, right? Jedi Fallen Order?
Yeah.
No surprise there. I do think, though, great marketing from a standpoint. Like, give everyone this game for free who's on the subscription model. Yeah. They get to play it for the month of January and February. And then guess what? The new game is going to be marketed to shit come February, March. So it's just... I think we've said time and time again, Richie, on multiple shows, like, this is the perfect bit of free marketing. The game's pretty much made all its money now. It's going to make, because it's, 3 and a bit year old? Yeah. It's on Game Pass already, so no one over on the Xbox side's buying it. PlayStation must be able to look at the numbers and go, right, there must be a tipping point when every game hits where it's saturated its market. Just put it on a subscription model.
It seems to be on perpetual sale as well whenever you look on the store. It's like, it's done its life cycle, right? It
kind of functions as a demo in some ways, instead of doing a demo for Jedi Survivor, if people are looking at Jedi Survivor and going, oh, I'm interested in that game, I'd like to jump in. Well, here's Jedi Fallen Order. Basically, he's an extended demo and you'll play and go, yeah, that's great, I want more of that. Then you'll buy it.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of people, like, by putting on this on PlayStation Plus, they'll probably make a lot more money on, like, Jedi Survivor.
Yeah.
Because you'll get some converts, people who've played Jedi Fallen Order, who haven't played Jedi Fallen Order, play it and go, I want Jedi Survivor pre-order.
I'm just happy to have it back after the Stadia fiasco, really. So
yeah, it's just part of your library again on that front. So that's another good one. That's definitely the kind of the big hitter for this month. There is a lovely little indie title to come out of it as well. Axiom Verge 2 has also been announced. If you've not heard of Axiom Verge before, it's a highly regarded Metroidvania style game, and it very much, again, just looks like Metroid on the Nintendo.
It's basically a love letter to, like, 2D Metroids, like the Axiom Verge series. I've not actually played them, though.
I dabble. I think I played Axiom Verge on my PlayStation Vita. If again, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I'm sure there was a variant that came out on PlayStation Vita, because it's like that perfect style 2D puzzle platformer that lends itself to like a handheld device really, really well.
I think the first one came out at a point where Nintendo just seemed to be doing nothing with the Metroid IP. So you know that classic, well, if Nintendo aren't going to do it, let's do it ourselves.
Yeah. And part of me, there's a voice in my head saying this was made by like one guy or like a really, really small team. So shout out to Axiom Verge. Definitely check it out if you're a fan.
Games.
That sounds like one guy.
Developer Thomas Happ.
Yeah, that's 100% just one guy. So yeah, shout out to that sequel. Very much appreciate there as your indie game, claimable on PS5 and PS4. And then the final one, that's coming out for the month of January to claim is Bethesda's Fallout 76, which actually on yesterday's XPass, Richie, I believe there's a Fallout 76 story in there about how many players there is. So go check out that show where we break it down probably in a little bit more depth as well, talking about the success, or I guess the fall and rise of Fallout 76. This is your final game. Only the PS4 version is claimable because I don't believe there is a native PS5 version yet. Again, Fallout 76, taking the traditional Fallout formula and turning it into a multiplayer game, which is what everybody always wants from their favourite IP. I'll probably give a bit more thoughts on this one when we talk about it yesterday on XPass.
This game's 4-year-old. It doesn't feel like it's a 4-year-old game.
Not at all, but now we have it. It's claimable. Again, critically panned upon release. However, it's had a lot of effort, and I think Bethesda came out very early doors and said, we will fix this. They were very much trying to do a No Man's Sky on this thing, and to some degree, they have done that. So if you've not checked out Fallout 76, it's there to play now. I've never played a Fallout game. I've said that many times, aside from Fallout Shelter. Did either of you two check out 76?
For all of an hour, and then I vowed never to play that game. I don't care how good it's going.
Because it didn't even have NPCs at launch, right? It was all relying on other people.
There was just nothing going on, and it was like a massive grind fest, and there was like bullshit, kind of lots of bullshit around, like the stuff you got for like the special edition and things like that. So on principle, I'm not playing this game.
Like, for me, it was just the concept of the game, because Fallout is kind of like, it is very much a single player. It's a proper RPG where you have a blank slate character. You assign however you want to play, and you play through the story in that world. It is kind of, it's like a Skyrim. You do want to get lost in that world.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they made this an online experience and took away some of the things that the characters that you meet along like the world's like. So what? So then you just left with this just like post-apocalyptic bland world, really?
Yeah, like
the worlds in Fallout, they kind of are meant to be a bit sparse.
Yeah, but like it's the characters that give it the flavour, essentially. Like the one distinction the big distinction between this and a game like No Man's Sky is that No Man's Sky was an indie developer that got like swept away in like a massive PR campaign.
The market got away from them.
Yeah, right. What Bethesda did as a massive company is just try to dial it in and then make a quick cash grab, and then they saw like the backlash and like, oh guys, we'll make a good game, we promise, because you've kicked off.
Yeah.
Like
it was conceptually poor, then they've pivoted to try and force it to be something because they spent a lot of money developing it.
Yeah, but ultimately not enough.
But interesting. So you're telling me, as someone who's never played it, maybe avoid this one, even though it's apparently been fixed?
We'll find out.
I don't know what it looks like now, but...
Yeah, we haven't had the conversation we're going to have on XPass yet at the time of recording, so we'll see.
Okay, interesting. Because again,
I don't want to roll it out before we've actually dug more into its resurgence.
I do think I'll enjoy it, but again, I also have this vibe that like Fallout New Vegas is maybe due like a remaster or something from Obsidian at some point. So I'm like, do I just hold off until there's some new bells and whistles shiny one? But we'll talk about it on XPass anyway.
One distinction I would make for PlayStation is I think the game's already available on the higher tier. For PlayStation Plus, and I think it's just coming to the Essentials tier.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so the Essentials will be like claimable forever, aren't they? Like they're your monthly main ones, whereas they get rotated out in Premium and Extra. Moving on though, one of the nice little quick stories we've got here for you. God of War Ragnarok, again, me and Richie touched on at the start of the show. Rob's got it set aside for his festive Christmas game. New update coming fresh out of Sony's Santa Monica, the studio that made the game. They're essentially saying they're going to go back to it next spring and bring out a new game plus with a bunch of extra details closer to release. So Richie, just as a quick one, anything in particular you'd like to see out of God of War? So new game plus, any kind of like little accoutrements you'd expect them or want them to like add on just to refine it maybe for one more. If you were to play through it one more time next spring, what would you like to see on a second run through perhaps?
The thing for me when it comes to new game pluses in general is I think they should need to be there immediately, because if I'm to come back to this game in spring, I don't want to jump into a maxed out character when I can't remember all the moves, I can't remember how to play. Then I feel like, have you ever like done that where you started like new game plus like 6 months after you played the game, it's just like you're just completely lost and everything.
But on new game plus, you're starting from the beginning, so it's not going to teach you it all again.
No, I wouldn't expect it to. But all the unlocks, because when you're playing a game like God of War, you're learning your abilities as you unlock them throughout as you play the game. So it's like, I don't know. I find it quite difficult to go back to New Game Plus mode.
You're not really much of a DLC guy anyway.
I'm not, but so I don't really know. I don't know what I want from it, to be honest. I'm very, very happy. I'm not sat there thinking about this game going, oh, it needs this or it needs that. I'm going, no, what it needs is a sequel. Like, that's what I want from God of War. Another full-fledged game. I don't really need anything more in Ragnarok.
What about the option to melt all the snow?
That would... Yeah, okay, I'll take it. I don't know why, but...
Make the game look a little bit different.
Imagine if that was New Game Plus. Instead of being like a New Game Plus, it's like a second quest where it just remixes the entire world by melting the snow.
Was it Kratos v global warming or
So
something?
Thimble is like, you have to play through the entire story again, but Thimble Winter isn't happening.
Thimble Spring.
So you're going back to the original God of War world, like to the Lake of the Nine isn't frozen over.
It's just a boat. Yeah, it's something different. I'm sure.
But it means you could access things in different orders.
Yeah. I mean, is photo mode even out yet?
Yeah, I think it's just dropped.
All right, damn it.
I'm sure I got a notification earlier today, actually.
All right, because I tried when I was doing my playthrough when it first launched. I was trying to get loads of cool photos and landscape shots, but they kept because the dialogue is so constant in this game. They kept talking, the subtitles kept blocking the shot for me, so I had to wait until a moment of silence to go right. Screenshot, try and get the angle, and you just sometimes can't get it right. But beautiful game, with or without snow. Speaking of post-launch content for some games, we've also got some news that Need for Speed Unbound, after last week's news that 5 of the key developers from the team have left Criterion, the development studio as its whole is not actually done with the game. The PS5 arcade racer is apparently rather good. It's reviewing quite well. And over on the subreddit, they've confirmed to fans that the team are going to be taking a quick holiday break, and then they'll be getting back to the fictional world of Lakeshore in the new year, and they've got stuff in the pipeline for post-launch content updates and experience packs with free access to new modes, social features, and progression. They say the first major update will focus on expanding social player features, and future updates are going to add more car customization, content, and features. Not really much more to be said on Need for Speed Unbound. I think it's a game that I feel like I'd have fun with, but I have no interest in.
You know what? I actually on EA Play, because I have a membership for that. They give you a 10-hour free trial, and I actually maxed out the trial on it.
Okay.
Which is quite rare. And it's I wasn't expecting to. I was basically just having to dip in so I could comment on it for this show, really. But no, I was pleasantly surprised. Not enough to buy it or care about any DLC or whatever, but as far as those types of games go, it's not bad at all, really.
Do you think it
isn't the highest praise, but
Do you think it'd make a good PlayStation Plus game? Because you don't really want to go out and buy it, but if you saw it come to PlayStation Plus for, let's say, February, be like, awesome, I'm happy to jump into that occasionally.
Yeah, that'll be it'll be a strong title for PlayStation Plus.
When you're in the mood to jump into a racing game for an hour or two, it'd be nice to have in your library. But not worth a full priced £60 game.
And the cosmetics and purchasables could be really easy to do on that game because and that could sustain it as opposed to kind of the game prices or whatever. But no, pleasantly surprised.
How close did it remind you of Need for Speed Underground 2? Because I feel like that's our
not close enough
line in the sand where this is what we rate. That's the gold standard.
It might come to Game Pass in the future because there's a lot of EA Play stuff in Game Pass.
Yeah, I think it's destined for it, if we're honest, because it's had such a poor launch. I think we said on last week's show, Richie, it didn't crack the top 10 for December, and it came out in December, so it was a bit ooh, and usually in the past it would be right up there. So I think games that usually underperform at launch, to recoup some of their money back, the developers often go right, how can we extrapolate as much money from this, and going to Microsoft and saying, do you want this good game? And again, this would look like a great title to, like you said, drop on Game Pass or PlayStation Plus maybe next summer, a random quiet period. Just say, oh look, you're getting the AAA game from EA, and like you both alluded to there, I would check this game out, I would play it, but I ain't buying it.
I'm not sure how well this game has been marketed, to be honest, because
non-existent,
I think if we weren't dialed in and reading articles to build multiple podcasts a week, I don't think I would have even realised this game came out yet.
No, probably not. But One of the things that has came out and has sold over 90 million copies in its entirety is another racing franchise, and that's in the form of the PlayStation exclusive from Polyphonic Digital's, or Polyphony. Why did I say Polyphonic? What did Polyphonic make? The cameras? Either way, Polyphony, which I, for like 28 of my adult year life, used to call it Polyphony. Until I think I listened to an American podcast now, like Polyphony, and I was like, "Oh, that makes so much more sense than polyphony."
Yeah, it's like one word.
Yeah, but as a daft kid, when you read it on like a PS1 Gran Turismo 2 copy, that's what my child brain did phonetically with it. Gran Turismo surpassed 90 million copies as it celebrates its 25th anniversary this week. There was a PlayStation blog post reflecting on the amazing milestone, showing that its origins all the way up to today's and the more recent Gran Turismo 7, which has sold millions upon millions. And Polyphony Digital now hires over 200 employees, and its most recent entry, Gran Turismo 7, has been heralded as one of the best in the longest running racing franchise. Congratulations, I guess, to them all. No doubt, it's always one that I look back fondly on. Growing up, Gran Turismo 2 arcade mode. I had a dodgy copy, and the game was that big. The arcade disc was a separate disc to the actual campaign disc. But the theme tune, I think, was it Feeder Just a Day?
Yeah.
Was like
did you have the discs in one of those like little binders?
Of course. I loved it back in the day. I've dabbled in them. I think the most time I probably put into one was Gran Turismo 3. I want to say A-Spec on the PlayStation 3 when they had like that weird like earlier version of the game before the full release. I think I got it with my PlayStation 3 actually. And again, I've dabbled throughout the years. My brother's a bigger Gran Turismo fan, but it's one I always appreciate from a distance because of how just gorgeous the games look. Mm-hmm. But I don't have time in my life now to do a 100-lap or a 24-hour real-world simulation of Le Mans in France or something, because it's just
racing sim games just stopped appealing to me once you got tired of real driving. I think
they're essentially like RPGs. You've got to put so much hours of time into your car's specs and your brake pads and your discs and
that gives you 0.2 of a second.
Yeah.
I think if you're into racing games, I feel like the sort of person who does actually watch motorsport, the kind of would be phenomenal.
Oh, undoubtedly.
For you. But as someone who, I'm just kind of very much I've never really been into motorsport. I've enjoyed racing games here and there. It's just, I don't know, it's just never appealed to me. These are the sort of games where I wish PlayStation would do the Microsoft thing and put all the first parties on PlayStation Plus. Because if they put Gran Turismo on PlayStation Plus, even if it's just on the premium tier, we'd be playing it. We'd be doing streams on it and stuff otherwise. But I'm probably just never gonna touch it otherwise.
Undoubtedly, but then again, looking at the numbers, 90 million sold times by an average game price of $50 to $70. I think they're quite content with their return on that investment. But congrats
absolutely.
to Gran Turismo nonetheless. No doubt we'll see Gran Turismo 8 probably on the PS6. It's very rare that they get a new 2 games out in one generation. If not, it's usually a tight end of the generation squeeze. But that brings us to an end of the news on this week's show. So I just wanted to round things out by reflecting a little bit, not only on the 25 years of Gran Turismo's success, but the year with PlayStation in 2023, and just round the show by talking about some of our kind of key highlights, what we've enjoyed the most in our year with PlayStation. So we'll talk about our game of the year on an episode of CloudQuest, Richie. We've got that sorted, separate all from this. But I'll throw it over to you actually first, Richie. Looking back on your year in PlayStation, you had your PlayStation 5 for another entire year now. What have been some of your highlights?
I actually think it's been a bit of a quiet year this year for games in general, which is why we know 2023 is looking absolutely stacked, and I think that is the knock-on effects of the pandemic, where all the everything that was delayed over the pandemic got kind of pushed out to 21, 22 and into 2023. So I don't think there's been that many big hitters from PlayStation this year. You got Horizon at the start of the year, God of War at the end, and not much in the middle.
Gran Turismo
for me.
7.
For me. Yeah. But these games I have played on PlayStation, I played Trails of Cold Steel, the first one, on PlayStation 4, oddly enough, this year, which is one of the games that Stadia got me interested in, but then never delivered on. But yeah, I'm looking forward to 2023 and hoping that 2023 is going to be a horrible year as a gamer who's also an adult, because there's so much great games like you're looking at, and like across. And now I have an Xbox as well. I've got my Switch, I've got my PlayStation, I've got my Xbox. It's like, there's too many games and too many platforms. Like, absolutely. I can't play them all, but I want to.
So, any particular moment that was like the most, like, if you think back, what was the most standout fun you had playing games this year? Whether it's with us, the community.
I think it's going to probably be some of our live streams or something. Oddly enough, I think it's probably launching XPass. I know we're talking the PS. Well, launching the talking the PS, that was this year, actually.
It was, yeah. Nearly everything we do
launching
now
talking the PS has been awesome. Yeah, launching talking the PS, we've done our Stray race. I think that was great fun in terms of not just in terms of us making content, but like doing something a bit different, but like us like the banter backwards and forwards through that entire like race.
It helped that you cheat as well, Richie.
That is true, yeah.
That must have made it feel a bit nicer for you.
I would have won even if I didn't cheat.
Oh, that sounds like a rematch.
That's a rematch.
And especially now
it'd be interesting to do a rematch now we're so far away.
I was thinking, we're so far detached. I don't have that muscle memory of I've already played through this 3 times.
Comments below, let us know if you want us to repeat the race. We'll get Rob involved this time.
Again, I think it was just something a bit different. I think that's what we're looking forward to quite a lot with the Clicker Cast, and just actually flexing and just doing something a little bit different. It's a live show. It's talking about TV as opposed to just video games. And I'm looking forward to that in the new year as well. For me, my standout ones, I've pretty much had a year of Plague Tale. Seems to be mine. I platinumed both Plague Tale Innocence earlier in the year, and then followed that up with Requiem at the back end of the year. So I've kind of sandwiched the PS5 versions of this back to back, and in the middle of that, I got Horizon Forbidden West, like you said, and Ragnarok to round out the year. With a couple of little ones in between. Stray had an absolute blast. I think Stray is my standout, like, memorable one, just because of how different it was. I did get the platinum for Ape Escape, the PS1 version, back in the summer.
Nice.
I don't know why I committed to getting that one. I thought it can't be that difficult, and I've got like very mixed memories of Ape Escape, trying to get used to the analog sticks for the first time ever. That was like my big learning curve, an introduction to why can't I just use the D-pad? Why the F can't I just use the D-pad? And it was the D-pad.
Was it just pure nostalgia that?
It was, yeah. And obviously it was the launch of the new PlayStation Plus catalog and library, so I wanted to feel like I was getting my money's worth. And I think upon a reflection, it's been a bit shit, really, really for the last 6 months. And in terms of classics, like outside of Ape Escape, like I think we got like Siphon Filter, but I'm missing like a lot of the classics which I expected us to have by now. So nothing great for me, but I think as a year in whole, some terrific games I've really, really enjoyed. I think Stray for the channel was definitely probably my highlight, playing through that. And just just highlights how good PlayStation's first party is. Kena Bridge of Spirits I started the year off with. Then I went back for Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection to get that one. Then Horizon, then Stray, then The Last of Us Part 1 remake, and then Ragnarok. So like they're just like all phenomenal titles which are going to like belong in my kind of catalogue of favourite games of all time, all of them. And I got to experience them all this year. So fantastic 2022 for me. What about you, Rob? Rounding things out?
I have to give it to Stray. Stray was such like a surprise kind of sleeper hit, which if I wasn't kind of involved in Helix and things like that, it probably would have completely kind of passed over my radar. I think generally speaking for the year, like the biggest highlight for me is just being kind of getting involved with like the Helix like community, because like kind of joined this like already established community, and like there's always that worry when you do something like that, where it's like, oh, it's the new guy, and like
he doesn't even have RGB lights.
It's like is everyone going to hear me and stuff like that. And everyone's been like super friendly. It's like really fun to play with and things like that. And it's forcing me to, well, not forcing me, but it's prompting me.
You will do it, damn it.
It's prompting me to play games which I wouldn't normally have done before, because like my personality is I hook into like one game and I obsess over it for like 6 months until I just never play it again. Whereas now I'm like kind of doing more smorgasbord type of things, and I'm like picking different titles, and it's kind of reinvigorated my kind of love of gaming. So thank you for everybody for being so welcoming and chill.
Yeah, they have been absolutely phenomenal. And again, any changes we've made on the channel, we can't shout out the community enough for like how much they've supported us through all like the changes in Stadia.
It's been a weird year
it has
for us as a channel. Like with like Stadia going, cloud gaming again seems to have stalling a bit. We've launched like new shows like Talking the Pay, this show, Talking and XPass, and like we've kind of really, the channel's changed a lot compared to where it was like 12 months ago.
Yeah.
And most of this is not just because a lot of this has been decisions that have been almost forced upon us in a way. Like we've kind of had to rethink of what we want to do with the channel, with like mainly the Stadia stuff, and like just thank you to the audience for coming with us, and like as we continually still try to figure out what the future for the channel is.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's been a lot of change. We had those emergency meetings with the Google team, and we were like, just don't shut it down, just keep it going, because it was like it was our core element. Like a lot of you folks watching along at home and listening on podcast feeds, like the hundreds of you tuning every single week for just three idiot friends talking about video games and what we've been up to and stuff. And
the amount of conversations me and you have had behind the scenes, like what do we do if Stadia goes away? What do we do with the channel? Do we keep going? How do we do that? How do we kind of try and soften the blow and stuff? That's why we launched Talking the PS earlier in the year, because the writing was kind of on the wall and we didn't want to just be blindsided by it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys have embraced it. I think it all comes back to why the three of us are here and why everyone watching along at home and listening along is here, is that we're all gamers. And like we've said, the mantra for this channel has always been play wherever makes you the happiest. So it doesn't matter if you're Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, PC. Hell, if you're digging out your old Sega Mega Drive from the dusty drawers of your bedroom, enjoy it. I mean, that's not Sonic, Richie, but I'll let you off on that.
That was Mario.
I'll let you off on that one. But yes, we're all...
You know what the ironic thing is? I can actually play a Green Hill Zone on guitar.
Well, there you go. There's a Christmas treat for everyone. Richie will play the outro for XPass this week will be that on guitar.
I don't have a guitar on me.
It's right behind you on the wall. We can see it.
Bass. That's a bass.
I mean, it's
not a guitar.
Right, it's got the same chords, right?
No, it doesn't. It literally doesn't have the strings it needs.
I mean, I feel like you could just do something. Either way,
Green Hill Zone's playing on the high E.
Either way, I think we definitely just want to say thank you to everybody out there who's tuned and listened again and stuck with us. And you're right, our community, the wonderful folks in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord and you listen along, because I know there's loads of lurkers out there. We know you're out there every single week. You don't want to comment. Hopefully you like the videos and stuff. You don't follow us on Twitter or anything. You just watch along every week. And I see a couple of you cropping up and saying Merry Christmas this past week and stuff. And we love you all. But I think one of our big challenges for next year is to really, really kind of get our community to be like just more vocal about everything they do, because we want to hear from you. The more you talk to us about the games you play and the odd messages, like I try and get to as many Discord messages as I possibly can do. But we want to hear what you're playing. Half of our news stories come from people in our community saying, hey, have you seen this? Oh, look at this news. That's coming out. That got announced today. And I go, oh, that would be really interesting to talk about. Add it to the show's doc. And that's how we build up our shows. So don't stay quiet out there.
Used to, but I'm actually kind of happy that I struggle to keep up with everything that's going on in our Discord server. Yeah, because it is that active. It's like I just can't read everything that gets said.
Absolutely.
But, it's a good thing.
We do have big plans for the new year. Like we said time and time again, we've got a new show kicking off in January. Obviously, now we've rebranded as Helix Plays Games. Our full intention is, I think, to probably start playing a few more games and not so much focusing on the podcast side of things. Not that they're going anywhere, but when we were looking back on our year in PlayStation, Xbox, it's like, I feel like I haven't played as much as I wanted to. And Rob's saying that you've played so many different things. Like, that's one of the really passionate things me and Richie found about Stadia, was that through Stadia and Stadia Pro, I played infinite more games these last 3 years than I ever would have dreamed of or even thought of doing. And I feel like it's made me a more well-rounded gamer from the back of it. And I'm not as addicted to trophies as I once was, because I'm part of a different ecosystem. And now I've got Xbox as well. I'm more back to enjoying the games rather than just hunting statistics necessarily. So that's awesome. And again, everyone in our community shouting out like, oh, this is good this weekend, or I've heard good things, or I've enjoyed this. It piques your interest to dabble in new things. So hopefully that's what this show does here. It piques your interest in all things PlayStation. XPass is doing its thing over there, of course. CloudQuest ticking away, doing its topical weekly discussion, which, what are we talking about this week, Richie? Remind the fan folks out there.
Game of the year. Our channel's Game of the Year for 2022.
That's right. Get your votes in the comments. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you're kept in the loop with all of the great content we've got here at Helix Plays Games. But that's been it, the final show of 2022 for Talking the PS. My name's been Chris.
I've been Richie.
And I've been Rob.
Have a very happy new year, everyone, and we will see you all in 2023. Play whatever makes you the happiest. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.